I woke up to the buzz of my phone before the alarm could sing its song. 4:47 a.m. Another airport morning where the sky is still black and the silence in the house feels like it's holding its breath. I slipped out of bed like a ghost, careful not to wake anyone. My suitcase was already by the door, zipped and ready like it always is. This was supposed to be just another flight. Flight 382 to Chicago. Quick overnight trip. Conference meeting. Dinner with two men I don't like. And back in time to surprise my daughter after her recital. That was the plan. Simple. Predictable. I made coffee in the dark. Poured it into my travel mug with hands that knew the rhythm too well. In those quiet minutes, I watched the digital clock blink forward and I thought of her. Lena. My daughter. 8 years old and dancing through life like gravity hasn't caught up to her yet. She'd left a note on the kitchen table in pink marker. Love you, Daddy. Break a leg at your boring meetings. A little heart drawn under it. Misspelled meetings as meetings. I smiled, took a photo, sent it to my wife. By the time I got to the airport, the world had already started to stir. Security lines, hollow-eyed travelers. That strange mixture of rushing and waiting that airports specialize in. I've been through this dance 100 times, maybe more, and still something felt off today. Not wrong, just off. The woman ahead of me in the line dropped her boarding pass twice. A man argued over a carry-on fee like it was life or death. My coffee tasted burnt. The gate change was sudden. Little things, but they stacked up like clues I didn't yet know how to read. We boarded late, some system delay. The pilot didn't say much, just the usual. We'll get you up in the air as soon as we can. Thanks for your patience. I settled into seat 18A window. Always the window. I like watching the ground fall away. It reminds me I'm moving, going somewhere, doing something. But today, I stared at the tarmac, watching rain gather in shallow puddles. The sky outside was a pale gray, as if even the sun couldn't quite wake up. The man next to me didn't speak. He typed furiously on a laptop, headphones in. I envied his focus. My mind wandered, always does when I fly. I thought about the last recital I attended, the one where Lena forgot her steps halfway through and froze. The music played on, but she stood there like a deer caught in her own dream. I remember mouthing, "It's okay," from the crowd, hoping she could see me. Eventually she ran off stage. Later that night, she cried into my shirt, ashamed. I told her courage isn't never falling, it's getting back up. But she already knew that. She went back the next day and danced again. She's stronger than I ever was. The flight finally took off an hour late. Engines roared. We rose above the wet pavement, pierced the clouds like we always do. I closed my eyes and let the hum of the plane blur everything else. I woke sometime later to turbulence. Light. Just enough to rattle the tray table. The captain said it was normal. Smooth air ahead. Always the same words, but my heart raced a little faster than it should have. I pulled out my phone. No signal, but I opened my photos. Scrolled through pictures of Lena at 5, 6, 7. Every missing tooth, every scraped knee, every birthday candle blown out too fast. And then a recent video, her practicing her dance routine in the living room, barefoot, determined, spinning with arms out like a bird testing its wings. It hit me like a wave. I've spent so many hours in the sky, I forgot what it feels like to simply be still on the ground with the people I love, to listen to the sound of her feet pattering down the hallway, to smell her hair after a bath, to hear her say, "I love you," without the distance of a screen. The plane dipped slightly, just enough to remind me I wasn't in control. And that's when it happened, a sound, sharp, metallic, somewhere beneath us. Then a pause in the engine's hum. No, a shift. A change so small most wouldn't notice. But I did. Maybe because I've flown too much, or maybe because part of me already knew. I looked around. The flight attendants kept their smiles. The seatbelt sign blinked back on. A few people murmured. No one panicked. But the man beside me stopped typing. I reached into my coat pocket and felt the recorder, the little black device I use for work notes, reminders, thoughts on the go. I'd meant to use it during the conference. I found myself holding it tightly, like a lifeline. And just like that, a thought bloomed in the back of my mind. If something happens, what will she remember? I didn't know it yet, but the story of this day had already changed. They say that when you've done something 1,000 times, it becomes muscle memory, routine, safe. That's how I always felt about flying. Until today. I stared out the window as the clouds thickened into a blanket of silver, swallowing the horizon. The seatbelt light was still on. It had been almost 30 minutes since the last announcement, but the plane hadn't stabilized, just small tremors now and then. Like the sky had something stuck in its throat. People around me were starting to shift. Not panic, just unease. That kind of collective silence where everyone is pretending nothing's wrong, but their eyes give them away. I looked down at the recorder, still in my hand, thumb hovering over the button. Why did I bring it out? I told myself it was just to record some thoughts for work, notes for my pitch, observations about travel delays or inefficiencies in scheduling. But that wasn't true, not really. I think I just wanted to leave something behind. Something that proved I was here. The flight attendant walked by slowly. Her smile was softer now, tighter. She leaned toward the jump seat at the front of the cabin, whispering into the intercom phone. Her eyes flicked toward the cockpit. Once, twice. I know that look. I've seen it in hospitals, in funerals. That moment when someone knows more than they can say, and they're deciding how much truth is safe to spill. I shifted in my seat. My fingers were cold. A strange thought struck me then, completely out of nowhere. I never taught Lena how to ride a bike. I promised her we would, but we always put it off. Weather, meetings, time, always time. I kept saying we'd do it next summer, but I couldn't even tell you where her helmet is. I don't remember what color it was. That hit harder than it should have. The plane shook again, longer this time, like a warning cough from the heavens. The captain came on the speaker, voice calm, but clipped. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some continued turbulence. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. We're in contact with ground control, and we'll keep you updated as we continue toward our destination. The words were smooth, practiced, but he didn't say, everything's fine. He didn't say, there's nothing to worry about. And he didn't say how long this would last. I think that's when the denial started to peel away. Because here's the truth. I've always been afraid of being forgotten. Not dying, being forgotten. There's a difference. Death is a moment. Forgetting is slow, quiet. It happens when your voice disappears from memory, when the smell of your sweater fades, when the people you love start living full days without your name ever crossing their mind. I've spent so many years chasing promotions, better contracts, bigger titles, all while trying to convince myself that it was for my family, for her. But now, sitting on this plane, I can't even remember what I was flying out to present. It doesn't matter. What matters is that Lena knows who I really was, not just the man who left early and came home late, not just the "hey kiddo" voice on the phone. I want her to remember the man who once held her for hours during a thunderstorm because she thought the sky was angry, the man who made up bedtime stories on the spot and drew treasure maps on napkins just to make her lunchbox magical. That's when I pressed the button. The recorder clicked softly. A red light blinked. I hesitated. What do you even say when you think it might be your last chance? But I didn't start with goodbye. I started with her name. Lena. That one word caught in my throat. I whispered it again, just to feel it settle. You're probably at your recital now, or maybe it's already over. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I was supposed to be. I wanted to be. I paused. My voice sounded shaky, foreign, like someone else had borrowed my breath. I watched your video again before boarding. You were beautiful, focused, braver than I've ever been. If I could be anywhere in the world right now, it wouldn't be this seat. It would be that auditorium, front row, camera in hand, cheering too loud, like I always do. The plane shifted again, a soft drop, like a sudden step down in a staircase. The lights flickered, just briefly, but enough that everyone noticed. Heads turned. The man beside me took off his headphones. The captain's voice came on again, still calm, but tighter now, like he was balancing truth on a tightrope. We're making a slight course adjustment. Please remain calm. Flight attendants, prepare the cabin. That phrase landed in my chest like a hammer. Prepare the cabin. I looked around. No one was talking anymore. The woman across the aisle clutched her armrest. The older man near the front was whispering something that looked like a prayer. The flight attendants were moving quickly now, but quietly. No more smiles. And all I could think was, she's waiting for me. Lena's probably looking at the doors every few seconds, hoping I'll burst in, late but grinning, bouquet of flowers in hand. Maybe she saved me a seat. Maybe she kept checking her phone during dress rehearsal, hoping for a message. I brought the recorder back to my lips. My hand was trembling now. If I don't make it back, sweetheart, I need you to know this wasn't the plan. I thought I had more time. We always think we do. I stopped the recording. I couldn't go further, not yet. Somewhere in the back of the plane, someone was crying quietly. Somewhere in the sky, the storm was getting closer. And somewhere on the ground, my daughter was still dancing. The smell changed first. Airplane cabins always have a sterile kind of scent. Cleaner, recycled air, a hint of coffee, and people's skin. But now, it smelled warm. Not cozy warm, mechanical warm, like heated plastic or tired metal, something stretched too thin. That's when the silence began to shift. Not into screaming or chaos, no. That would have made it easier in a way. This was quieter, a hush that had weight. As if everyone could feel the plane breathing differently beneath us. I looked at the flight attendant buckled into her jump seat. Her eyes didn't leave the aisle, but her fingers were digging into the edge of her seatbelt. Tiny movements, like someone trying to anchor themselves to reality. I reached into the seat pocket and took out a sick bag, something to hold maybe. My hand brushed against the safety card. I stared at it, noticing how many of the diagrams were people calmly following instructions. Nobody ever draws panic. My thumb found the power button on the recorder again. Click. I didn't even think, I just started speaking. I don't know how much time I have. I don't want to scare you, Lena. If you ever hear this, I hope you're much older. I hope you've grown into a strong, brilliant woman who dances like the world was made for her music. But if not, then this is the only way I can be there with you, even just a little. I love you. That's where I'll start. I know people say it all the time, on birthdays, at school pickups, as throwaway lines between work calls. But I want you to know what I mean when I say it now. I love you in the way that time stops when you laugh. I love you in the way your eyes crinkle when you're proud, but trying not to show it. I love you because you made me better, more real, more human. You pulled me back down to earth when I spent too much time in the clouds, literally and otherwise. The turbulence grew stronger, not sudden drops, just a consistent shaking now, like the sky was growling in its sleep. Outside the window, the clouds had darkened into a churning gray wall. No shape, just movement. And then, a sound. One I'd never heard on a plane before. It was like something grown from the spine of the aircraft. A low, slow creak that didn't belong. We dipped sharply, not nose first, not in free fall, just an unnatural tilt, like we were turning without permission. Someone 2 rows back gasped, sharp, sudden. A child cried, and for the first time, the calm cracked. A voice, not the captain this time, a different one, firm but fast. Brace for impact, that's all. No explanation, no more comforting tones. The lights dimmed, I tightened my belt so hard it dug into my hips. I think we're going down. I don't know how fast, I don't know where, but I can feel it. There's a heaviness in the air, like the future just snapped off its hinges. Lena, I always meant to write you letters for when you got older. Letters for your graduation, your first heartbreak, your wedding day. I thought I'd have years to figure out what to say. But now it's just this. My voice in this moment, carried by nothing but hope that someone finds it, that someone brings it to you. I want you to promise me something. Dance. Even when you're sad. Even when the music isn't perfect, or your dress doesn't fit, or the world feels too heavy. Dance anyway. And love people. The right ones. The weird ones. The ones who listen and laugh at your jokes even when they're not funny. Love them with your whole heart. And your mom, take care of her, okay? She's stronger than she lets on, but she'll need you. She always said you got your fire from me, but that's not true. You're your own kind of flame. The plane dropped. That's the only word for it. Like something gave way. We weren't flying anymore. We were falling with direction. People screamed, some loud, others silent with mouths wide and eyes wider. The man next to me gripped the armrest with both hands, knuckles white. I heard someone shout, "Tell my wife I love her!" I didn't scream, I closed my eyes, but I didn't stop recording. If there's anything left after this, if anyone finds this recorder, give it to her, please. Her name is Lena Morgan. She's 8. She likes mango yogurt, painting sunsets, and dancing barefoot on the grass. She's the only thing I ever did right without trying. Tell her I was thinking of her until the end, that I was proud of her every single second, that I loved her enough to fill the sky. The oxygen masks fell. I didn't even reach for mine. I was calm now. There's a strange peace in knowing you have no control. The fight leaves your body. It just floats. And in that space, I wasn't afraid. I was remembering the first time I held her, how tiny she was, how she gripped my finger like she knew something I didn't, how her eyes locked on mine like she was saying, you're mine. And I was, still am, still will be, whatever that means. I kept recording, even as the plane trembled around me, even as the windows went white with clouds and the engine let out a scream like metal being torn in half. Because maybe sound travels further than we think. Maybe love does too. There's a moment, just before something breaks, when everything becomes strangely clear. Not loud, not chaotic, just still. That's where I am now. Somewhere between movement and meaning, between falling and arriving. The plane is still in the air, I think, but I don't feel it anymore, not like before. The roar has faded into a low, distant thunder, like we've slipped behind a curtain into some quiet backstage the world rarely sees. Time isn't ticking, it's stretching. Outside the window, everything is white, not clouds, not light, just blankness, as if the sky itself has stopped existing and we're floating through memory instead. I don't know how to end this. I always thought I'd have time to write a proper goodbye. Maybe in a hospital bed at 85, hands wrinkled, voice soft, Lena at my side. Maybe with a notebook, one of those leather ones, with neat pages and ink that smudges slightly when you cry on it. But instead, it's here, a black recorder, a plastic seat, and the knowledge that this message might be the last breath I leave in this world. I think about my wife. Her name never left my mouth during the earlier recordings, but it's burned into my every heartbeat now. Claire. God, I can still see her the first time we met. Bookstore, rain outside. She asked me if the novel I was holding was any good. I hadn't read it. I bought it just to keep talking to her. We built a life in the margins, between shifts, between paychecks, between doubts. We raised Lena the same way, imperfect, messy, but full of love, always love, and I never told her how much she carried. All the weight I dropped, all the quiet sacrifices, the birthday parties planned without me, the tears wiped before bedtime when I was in another time zone. If you're hearing this, Claire, I'm sorry for every missed recital, for every time I said I'll make it up to you and didn't, for how many nights you fell asleep next to an empty space and a phone face down on the nightstand. I did it all for us, I told myself. For Lena's college fund, for our future, but a future without presence isn't a future at all. I see that now, far too late. The shaking stopped, not gradually, completely, and that was worse. Because in that silence, I knew we weren't flying anymore. Not really, we were gliding, coasting. The kind of movement that comes before gravity finishes what it started. People weren't screaming now. They were praying, whispering, crying. One man was singing something low, maybe a lullaby, maybe a hymn. The world had shrunk to a single sound. Breath. I pressed the recorder back to my lips. I think my voice was trembling, but I kept going. Lena, I hope your mom lets you keep dancing, even if it hurts sometimes, especially then. I hope you grow up and fall in love and fall out of it and fall back in again. I hope you get your heart broken at least once so you know how strong you are. I hope you become the kind of person who shows up, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's hard, because the world has too many people running late and too few who sit front row at recitals. I looked around the cabin. Eyes met mine. Strangers, souls in the same sentence. There was no panic anymore. Just breath and waiting and something sacred we all shared but didn't speak. The woman across the aisle was holding someone's hand, someone she hadn't boarded with. They weren't lovers, just humans. The flight attendant near the cockpit was crying, head bowed, lips moving. Maybe apologizing to someone in her mind. Maybe thanking them. The man beside me finally stopped typing. He closed his laptop gently and folded his hands like a prayer book. None of us were ready, but all of us understood. I took one last look out the window. The white had begun to fade, a darker blur taking its place. Trees, water, ground, it didn't matter. Lena, this isn't the end of me, not really. You carry half my heart, half my smile, half my story. So every time you laugh at your own joke, or spin barefoot in the grass, or cry because the world is too big and confusing, know that I am there, right there, inside that moment. My body will stop, my voice will fade, but my love for you, that's bigger than this sky, that's stronger than steel, that's louder than engines and quieter than the last breath before sleep. That doesn't crash. So when you wake up tomorrow, and you will, and the world feels one person smaller, just look in the mirror. You'll find me there, in the tilt of your head, in the fire in your eyes, in the dance you don't even realize you're doing. The recorder clicked off on its own, battery gone. Or maybe it knew there was nothing else to say. The world tilted once more. There was no more sky, only the quiet. And her name? Lena.